So it's a human tragedy of the first degree. So we all hope that peace will come back soon, but peace. Yeah, I think that the strength of haiku poetry is its simplicity. And they called me since then Haiku Herman.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for accepting this interview. Before speaking on haiku, I think I have to start with the Ukrainian crisis. Here I repeatedly say that Japan is really have confirmed to be against the Russian aggressions in Ukraine. And we really united with the EU and all like-minded countries to support the Ukraine, and especially with the EU, we work day by day for stopping this atrocity as soon as possible. So before discussing haiku, maybe I'm like to ask you your views on the Ukraine's crisis and actual situations for a short time.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, also to speak first and foremost about Ukraine, because it is a human tragedy. People don't know, even in Western Europe, that since 2014, already 30,000 people were killed in the eastern part of Ukraine. Since the 24th of February, since the Russian invasion, most likely tens of thousands of people are dead. Millions have become refugees. And the geopolitical, the global impact of this war is also awful. In some of the vulnerable countries in the world, especially in Africa, but not only in Africa, there is a threat of famine. It could be that, again, tens of thousands of people are starved to death because there is a shortage of grain, a shortage of wheat. So it's a human tragedy of the first degree. And as far as the war itself is concerned, I'm very grateful, and we are very grateful in the European Union, that we had the support of Japan, also applying the sanctions on Russia. And then we feel that the European Union, Japan, the United States, and other like-minded countries, we have a common destiny in this world. So we became closer. The West is back. The European Union comes out of this crisis, which is not finished, even stronger than before. Another happy, as I may call it, consequence is that the people in Europe, they showed also their concrete solidarity vis-à-vis the Ukrainian people. They welcomed all those refugees wholeheartedly. And we have to pay tribute, by the way, to the courage of the Ukrainian people facing a big country and being brave and even obtaining military successes. So we all hope that peace will come back soon, but peace, of course, in respect of the territorial integrity of Ukraine and the sovereignty of this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I agree with you and thank you for your words. And the Japanese people also united with the Ukrainian people. So you will see certainly the Japanese people's really sadness to see the atrocity which has happened in Ukraine, because we have known the same history in Japan.
Yep.
And in 2 weeks ago, we have had a EU-Japan summit in Tokyo, and our solidarity, our coordination between the EU and Japan, not only on this issue, but on all the issues, are still very alive. I think that's something to your starting up as a European Council President to start and to strengthen our relations with Japan. So let's come back to our topic today, haiku. So may I ask you several questions, because everybody knows you are a fervent advocates of haiku. So everybody is curious why you are so fond of making this Japanese traditional poetry. First questions, how did you first discover haiku? Because it's not natural to find out normally in Europe. And let us know your first experiences with these haiku cultures. Maybe your career as a politician has influenced that. That is our first questions.
As like most, I would put it in this way, like most things in life, it is coincidence who brought me to haiku. I think it was in the midst of the 90s. I was attending an anniversary party with my wife, and an anniversary party, and I was there, and I had a neighbor. It happened to be a monk, very close to the lady who was celebrating her 50th anniversary, and he spoke to me about haiku. I didn't know anything about haiku. And then he gave me a thick book about haiku, but he was not only a haiku poet, he was also a philosopher about haiku. I received that book, I put it aside, and years later I started reading it. I tried some verses, and he encouraged me. Go on, he said to me. And then a few years later, I published my first haiku book, and he was actually the man who was responsible for the choice of the haiku poems. And this book became in this country a huge success. And approximately around the same time, I became president of the European Council. And so this was a coincidence that people used to or get me know as a haiku poet, and then they discovered also that I was president of the European Council. And they called me since then Haiku Herman. And in this country, when you speak about haiku, you pronounce the word haiku, then immediately they think at me. So I'm very grateful also that I could be a good ambassador for haiku poetry in not only in this country but in many European countries. And I'm very grateful also that the Japanese government years ago recognized this role and appointed me officially as International Haiku Ambassador for the EU-Japan friendship. And you had the kindness also to hand me over the diploma for the prolongation of this ambassadorship. And I go to Japan again in July to speak about haiku, to promote haiku, so that one day it become, let's say, UNESCO World Heritage. It's a long way to go, we know it, but it's worthwhile to help and to contribute.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Your Excellency. It's very interesting experience you explained to me. And many Europeans, not only you, now are introduced to Japanese literature through haiku. And maybe it's a bit thanks to your efforts. In your opinion, what element is appealing to the European people? Is this a form of the poetry or the substance? So maybe I'm very grateful to hearing your views on that.
Yeah, I think that the strength of haiku poetry is its simplicity. Its simplicity in the form of the poem, 17 syllables. Its simplicity also in the general approach. It's about nature, it's about, most of the time, harmony, it's about, in some way, a longing for a nicer world, far away of the brutality, the aggression, the haste of the modern world. And these days, when you look at the war in Ukraine, you look at the horror of what's happening there, and you compare that with this almost harmonious world in which the haiku poet lives. So there is something very, very modern in it. There is a need for this kind of simplicity. There is a need for this longing for harmony and for nature. So it fits well with the current feelings of a lot of people. It fits well with the spirit of the time.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Maybe Europe has an identity of the diversities and also the long history of wars. So your point of the importance of harmony and peace are coinciding with demands of European people. That's exactly one of the philosophy of haiku, if I understand that.
I think that a haiku poet and haiku reader loves peace. I would say otherwise he cannot read haiku poems. It go hand in hand. That's, let's say, in something that is in line, as you rightly mentioned, with the recent European history. And that makes the difference between with Russia, your country, Japan, and the European Union. We draw the lessons from this terrible experience we had with the war. And we started a new nation, and we started this new Europe as far as our continent is concerned. And Russia didn't. They are repeating the same mistakes as we made in the past. And so that's the sad thing, and let us please ourselves that we draw those lessons from our history and got our people and give our people a new start.
Thank you very much. Haiku famously teaches to observe and connect with nature. In a world full of uncertainty and confusion, as you mentioned, I think haiku is also this kind of healing practice for a long time. For you, now you mentioned the actual situation of the war and atrocity. Haiku will be helpful to consolation and such. How do you see the role of haiku today? So of course this Ukraine crisis, but in the futures, maybe we are facing always the same kind of challenges. What is the role of haiku in the coming years for you?
Yeah, I think I mentioned already the war, but let us not forget also that climate change is one of the big themes of our world. The survival of not only of the planet, but of the human race is depending on it. And haiku is related to nature. Haiku is related to the seasons. Again, you are not a haiku reader or a haiku poet if you don't love nature, if you don't love the cycle of the seasons. And that's a strong point also in the current situation. Not only haiku shows us how different we are regarding the ongoing war, but also how in line we are with the mood of the spirit of the time, so in favor of combating climate change.
Very, very interesting point. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Maybe can I ask you final questions? So you accepted the post of the Haiku Ambassador for government. Thank you very much once more here. And haiku is a very important pillar of our culture. So you are right, we are now preparing a possibility of applying for the UNESCO cultural heritage. And of course, it's not an easy task, but I hope that the support of eminent people like you, Your Excellency, we can arrive at that objective one day. And Japan and the EU, as we discussed earlier, we share the same values, and we strengthened our cooperation, thanking to your leadership first. And we have concluded the 2 treaties and the EPA and SPA. So our solidarity is really enlarged in many fields, economically, politically, geopolitically, and also the global issues such as the climate change, digital transformations. But I think the cultural exchange is one of a piece, maybe most important, to the sharing values between the EU and Japan. So how do you see the Japan-EU relations from now to the future? Maybe haiku is a very symbolic one. You represent that to show the same common way of thinking to the world. So let us listen to your view on the Japan-EU relations.
Thank you. With some of the countries in the world, we share values. With others, we share interests. With Japan, we share values and interests, which is rather rare. So we have, in that sense, a special relationship. And I was happy, almost 10 years ago, to launch the negotiations that lead to the, as you mentioned, the strategic partnership agreement and the economic partnership agreement, among them a free trade agreement. And I was happy to have launched this and that it came to a conclusion. We see the results in the economic field already now. Strengthening of our trade between the two countries. We were already trading nations, one of the biggest trading nations in the world. But this FTA and this strategic partnership gave an additional impetus to those developments. But two things in the last year brought us even more together. That was during these difficult times of the presidency in the United States before Joe Biden became president of his country, and now this war in Ukraine. So we made the best of a difficult situation each time. And we took benefit from this crisis and we transformed this in an opportunity to strengthen our relationship. But you said rightly that we shouldn't restrict ourselves to politics and to economy. Culture is an important dimension. And of course we have a different past and different cultures, but that's a strong point. And therefore my contribution to better understanding Japan via haiku is something on which I'm proud. And here we have millions of Japanese tourists each year in Western Europe, also in this country. Go to Bruges and you will meet Japanese people, of course, in these post-COVID times again, because we had 2 years of interruption. And they see what our culture is and how we lived and where we come from. And these people-to-people exchanges are of utmost importance. So I have not read the latest versions of our strategic partnership agreements, but if needed, we have to strengthen the culture chapter of that, because you said Europe is built on unity out of diversity. We are, Japan and the European Union are very diverse. But as I said, we have also a common destiny. And we feel it in these tragic times, that we share, as I said, not only interest, we share values. And let's build on that. A long-lasting friendship between people and between nations is not only based on the economy or on money, it's based on values, it's based on cultures. That's a lasting foundation for a long-standing friendship.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your interesting insights into haiku and also for your experiences, also for your views, not only on haiku, but through haiku, we have discussed so many things which we are facing. In fact, it can offer us in our day-to-day life as a source of creative consolations, as shown throughout its rich history, the haiku. It's one of the cherished aspects of Japan-EU cultural relation, which you mentioned, Mr. President. And I thank Mr. Rompuy for his heartful and sincere dedication to haiku. I encourage you all to learn more about haiku today, and in the hope that one day you too can start practicing it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Sayonara.